All right, guys, your first lesson of the week is going to be a really fun one. I love graphing ordered pairs because it always kind of feels like you're solving a little bit of a mystery. So an ordered pair, if you'll remember from last week, is what we used for those coordinate planes. It's basically your x and then your y coordinate, and they tell you where to go along that big, regular coordinate grid that I'm obviously not going to draw. And it's your steps right, and then it's your steps up, and that will help you plot those ordered pairs. Just because Mrs. Glassy is a wacko, I also want to tell you guys one of my favorite things that I always like to show kids is that an ordered pair kind of looks like if a cat was sitting on a fence. That would be kind of like their little kitty cat butt cheeks, and then they have a little tail hanging down. So if you wanted a nice visual of what an ordered pair looks like, I always think of them as cat butts. So enjoy that. All right, we are on lesson 7-6. Make sure you have out your pencil and your SAB, and I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to read to you this paragraph up here at the top. It says, generate and graph ordered pairs. So numerical patterns can be written horizontally or vertically. Those are just fancy words to remind you that horizontal and then vertical, right? So that's an X and then a Y. And then it says the add 4 table below shows a numerical pattern in the left column and the result of adding 4 in the right column. So you're just following a pattern here. So the first thing it wants us to do is to complete this add 4 table, and that should be very easy. So 1 plus 4 would be 5. So then 2 plus 4 would be 6. 3 plus 4 would be 7. 4 plus 4 would be 8, and then 5 plus 4 would make for 9. So our table is now done. So let's look at directions number 2. Complete the X and Y table to show the ordered pairs that the add 4 table represents. Basically what you've done is this column is going to tell you how much you move to the right, and this column is going to tell you how much you move up and down, or sorry, just up. And that's going to become what we call your X and Y coordinates, because if you'll remember, this is called your X axis and this is your Y axis. So that's all very fancy, but really all it means is that this number on the left is your X and this number on the right is your Y. It's basically how they've changed after you added 4. So if I had 1, 5, my next one would be 2, 6. Then it would be 3, 7. Then it would be 4, 8, and then it would be 5, 9. There's that little cat butt sitting on a fence. So then it says each ordered pair represents a point in the coordinate plane, so graph and connect your points. So all we're going to do is we're going to take these 5 coordinates, and we're going to plug them into this graph. So first one is 1, 5. So I go over first. You have to run before you can jump. So I'm going to go over 1 and then up 5, make a little dot. The next one is 2, 6, so I'm going to go over 2 and then up 6, which will go right there. Then it's 3, 7, that goes right there. Then it's 4, 8, that'll go right there. And then 5, 9, which will go right there. And then it even says it wants us to connect those points. So our job is to try to connect those as straight as we possibly can to make a line. Now, just foreshadowing, thinking a little bit into the future, these are going to be really helpful to you later on when you learn about like how things progress at the same rate. So every single one of these went over 1 and then up 1 and then over 1 and then up 1, and so they're considered to be moving at the same rate. Again, not anything you have to worry about at the moment, but just wanted to show that to you. The bottom of this page is giving you the information already. So it says, suppose a shrub grows at the rate shown in the table below, and it wants you to use the table to complete exercises 4 and 5. So they're telling you that when the shrub is 0 years old, it's 0 feet in height. Makes sense, it's not there yet. But after 1 year, it would be maybe 1 foot tall. And then after 2 years, it would be 2 feet tall. 3 years, 3 feet tall. 4 years, 4 feet tall. So it says, write the 5 ordered pairs that the data represent. Think of this as your X. Think of this as your Y. So our coordinates would be 0, 0. That one looks like a person. And then we have 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, and then 4, 4. Okay, and then it wants you to graph the ordered pairs and what does each axis of the graph represent. We'll do that part second. So first let's graph those. I'll make this purple this time. So 0, 0, remember that's called your origin. It's where you start every time, but it also happens to be one of our points. So that's 0, 0. Then it says 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, and then 4, 4. And obviously this is clearly a graph that could go on forever. What do we think would happen after 5 years? I think it would grow 5 feet in height. So here where they ask you what does each axis represent, that's basically asking you for your labels. What did we do when we were going over, and what did we do when we were going up? So we want to think of those labels. So what did the X, or our first number, represent? Our first number represented this column right here. So we would say the X axis reps, we'll make that shorter, reps the number of years, or I guess we should have said age. I'll cross that out. Represents the age. And then the y-axis is going to represent the other one, which happens to be the height. So this tells us 1 year, 1 foot, 2 years, 2 feet, 3 years, 3 feet, 4 years, 4 feet, and so on. Okay, on the next page, it's got some real world problems here for us to solve. And it's telling you about a drippy faucet. It's a very annoying sound. So it says in 20 minutes, a dripping faucet could leak 10 milliliters of water. So it wants you to complete the table to show the amount of water it would leak in 0 minutes, 40 minutes, and 60 minutes. So again, we know that in 20 minutes, it leaked 10. So we can assume that every 20 minutes, it's going to leak another 10 milliliters. But this first one is definitely trying to trick you a little bit. If no time has passed, how many milliliters of water have spilled? That would be no milliliters of water. So that's going to be a 0. But then for 40, so we have basically what we have to figure out here is for every 20 minutes, there's a 10 milliliter leak. So I have 2 groups of 20 here. So that should be 2 groups of 10. So that's going to be 20. And then over here for 60, I have 3 groups of 20. So that should be 3 groups of 10. So that's going to be 30. Another way you could look at it is you could also think of, okay, what's half of 20? That's 10. What's half of 40? That's 20. What's half of 60? That's 30. That would also help you out there, okay? Now it wants you to write your ordered pairs that the data represent. So same as we've been doing before. That's your X coordinate. This is your Y coordinate. So the first one would be 0, 0. Then we'd have 20, 10. Then we'd have 40, 20. And then we'd have 60, 30. So this tells us to graph and then connect the points. And it even wants us to extend the line. So we're going to do all of that. Let's start first by graphing. 0, 0 will be our first point right there. Then I'm going to have 20, 10. Something to notice on this coordinate plane, it's counting by tens rather than ones. So that's something to think of. The next one was 40, 20. So I'm going to go over to 40 and then up 20. Then it tells me to go over 60 and up 30. So I have a fancy computer, so I'm going to actually use a line generator. Oh, that's so cool. That I'm going to put right there. And what's cool is that might help us answer some of this next question. So it says to graph and then connect the points and extend the line. So I graphed, which was 0, 0, 20, 10, 40, 20, 60, 30. Then I connected those 3, or I guess 4, but then I also extended the line. That just means keep going further, right? So then it says, what amount of water would you expect to leak in 90 minutes? So my job would be then to come over here to 90, and then just go up until this line meets, which is right here. And my job is to try and figure out where that matches over here on my y-axis, which seems to be halfway between 40 and 50, which I would say is 45. Okay, so write that down first. Make sure you've got your graph labeled, or not labeled, but filled out. And then basically what we figured out over here is that 30 was half of 60, 20 was half of 40, 10 was half of 20. So what's half of 90? That's 45. So I'm going to put here half of 90 equals 45. But also because we extended our line. That extension of the line is one of the other reasons why we were able to figure this one out. Why was it that we knew exactly how many milliliters of water would leak after 90 minutes? Okay, pretty cool how that graph can answer that question for you. Bottom of the page is another real world situation. This one's about automobile travel. And it says the graph represents an automobile traveling at a constant speed. So think of it like as if your parents are on the freeway and they hit cruise control, which means they're always going to be going the same rate. So this says the points on the graph represent 4 ordered pairs. So write them. So this time they want us to go find the ordered pairs. So I want to remind you first, you always got to go to the right and then you can go up. So this first point actually looks to be 0, 0, because there's a little dot right there. So our very first one is 0, 0. The next one looks like 1, 60. Then it looks like we have 2, 120. And then this third one looks like 3, 180. Okay. So now it wants you to complete the table. Same information, you're just going to put it in table form, and this will actually help us explain what's going on here. So they told us that if we went 0 hours, we obviously have traveled 0 miles. But if I traveled 1 hour, how many miles did I go? I went 60 miles. And then if I went 2 hours, I traveled 120 miles. And then if I went 3 hours, I went 180 miles. So it wants to know, what's your constant rate? How fast are you going every hour? So you could think about that as asking yourself basically, what's the difference between these numbers here? I went from 0 to 60, then 60 to 120, then 120 to 80. So that shows me pretty clearly that I am traveling 60 miles per hour. And that's kind of what the graph shows us. We'll skip writing the explanation for that one, okay? But you are traveling 60 miles per hour. So I would really love for you today, obviously we did the whole SAB together, so that's out as an option. You can definitely do the homework and remembering pages. In fact, it's nice because the graphs are already, or the coordinate planes are already there. Another awesome option is to always do the IXL. So I'll go put some IXL options on there. I had a good question about this last week. Remember, just because I put a bunch on there doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do them all. I would obviously like you to, but also it just is something for you to practice that's in this same area. So you just get as much practice done as you think you need, okay? Log into Zoom hours if you need any help. Otherwise, good luck.